let's do some science, some speaker related shit. So I found this aging in the sun. It's nice yellow now. So then, you know, it's like a tan line. So what it used to look like. I found the motor on this one. This is a 3-hole one. And then I was noticing, I was like, well, this is great. They have 6 holes. And lo and behold, it's the 127 millimeter bolt pattern. So this is, I think, the LVL3 from Lower to Base, which is a little triple stack, equal to like RE Audio SX. And the bolt holes line up. So this is great because it has the 127 and then 120 millimeter bolt hole patterns, and so it actually lines up. You just need some longer hardware, and so you can use these frames for regular motors that have that 127 millimeter pattern, which I thought was great. I don't know how happenstance it was, but you know, if you have these frames, you can use them for that. You don't have to use the Memphis motors for them. By the way, this was Memphis. This is a modular top. You used to be able to, probably not very long, tops for, you know, the woofers, and then they're like, well, we don't make as much money. Also, you know, why make $10 when you can make $100? And that's, you know, where that comes in, and that's just, I don't know. I think that's just greed, but, and of course, I'm not doing this for money. The only reason why I charge for stuff is so that I can escape my situation. So I was thinking today about, you know, some people are like, well, Patrick, you run a not-for-profit. Why don't you just give me free stuff? And I was like, well, first of all, if you have enough to give to someone, don't you want to like make it count? Right? That's the first thing. So if you're just some nobody slug that wants free stuff, you're just a nobody slug that wants free stuff. That's not a really great gift, right? Like, you don't want to give your sperm out to everybody. I don't know, unless you do, then that's up to you. But no, I want skanks to work for that shit. So, but somebody brought that up in some comments. They were talking about how, you know, if you're as nice and as gracious, you know, that's actually not true. So some of the people that interact with me on a daily basis understand what I do and understand why I have rules and understand why I do the things that I do. And just to make things crystal clear, some of the work, most of the work I do here on YouTube is for infotainment. It's for entertainment purposes with some learning involved. Because again, most people that are in my position with my amount of knowledge don't work for themselves. And if they do, they're highly protective of their information. So let me give you an example. Somebody that's a speck on the map as far as work is, you know, like as far as market capture, is Nick Hutchinson, right? Who just decided to close his doors on, just so you know, he's just closing the doors on building loudspeakers for assholes. That's all, for rich assholes. That's all. Or what was that one kid that he bought the 8 Origin 8, and I looked up the specs, and the 8-inch woofer has a FS of 61 hertz. I was like, oh, you bought a $200 fart machine. Like, you're not making any bass with that. It's a really good mid bass, but it's not made for bass. I'm sorry you got tricked. I'm sorry there's no Santa Claus, you know, but as far as you know, I'm you know, I was thinking about all this stuff about today about I went through the comments, by the way, on Jacob's page, Jacob Fuller of Sundown Audio. So I went through all the comments, and I want to apologize to Jacob, and I mean this sincerely. I had some thoughts about Jacob that turned out to be wrong, and so I was wrong in some of my assumptions. So one of the assumptions that I had was that because somebody sent me some links, and then of course I have to use somebody else's account to look at Jacob's page because Jacob has me blocked. And so I look, and I go back and look again, and I don't see the comments of probably two of the biggest builders on there, which is Scott Dildo, and the other one was Taylor Gardner. So if you guys don't know who Taylor is, Taylor, I'm assuming from just what I've gathered over the years is that he runs or is important at Ampere Audio, AMPRE, something like that, Ampere Audio. So he's a big wig, whatever that means. And then of course you guys know Scott Dildo as the guy who founded Power Hog, but then decided to just like give it up and go work at Sundown. Same thing with Dave Lieb. Dave Lieb has his own brand or whatever, DI Designs, DL Designs, and he decided to go work for, Jacob. Okay. Again, most people in my position, they either don't want to give up all their secrets, or they go to work for somebody else. And I don't want to do either. I want to blow up the whole game. I think all this stuff is silly. But since I'm going to be in it, I want to ruin it for everybody that's, I feel is being unfair and predatory towards the world. Because that's how these things, these brands like Sundown get propagated, is it's based on the cool factor. So like Jacob starts out in 2001 or whatever he started, and he starts making some cool shit. Well, what's funny is Jacob reminds me of the guy that I ran into at Sprint, who was the manager, and the guy was completely incompetent. And I was like, how did Sprint fucking make you a manager? And he's like, everybody else quit. And so you got to understand, and that's what it's like in the Phoenix comedy community, is a lot of the people that have been there forever are just there and part of the scene because everybody else either moved on or quit. And so you got to look at the landscape in 2001 or whenever he started. Nobody else was doing what he was doing except maybe like RE Audio, and they of course had David. I always forget his last name. He's out of Star, Mississippi. David Moore. They had David Moore as a builder, and mostly what they did was import. But anyways, basically the idea of like RE and a company like Sundown was they were just buying stuff that is like ready-made or slightly contoured to their brand, and they were either bringing it here and building it, or they were just importing it and selling it, no tooling, no anything like that. And then they sell it cheap, and that's how they get their foot in the market. What was it? Nobody else was doing what Jacob was doing. And Jacob really felt, and you can see this through not only the progression of Sundown, but also through just in the market. So Rockford, of course, had tried to capture that market, and then you saw Pioneer take a big chunk of that market with, say, somebody like Scott Owens, who was the first one to break 180. And again, you try to make a dent in what they were doing, and at the time, they weren't able to grow the fan base the way that Jacob has. And so all the market value that Jacob has, he has totally earned. However, it's mostly because there hasn't been any real competition. Or when there is competition, they get in their own way. They want too much money, all this kind of stuff. Somebody came in today and was saying, like they were apologizing to me. They felt bad for me because they saw what I think there at current count there's like 99 comments on that thread on Jacob Fuller's page, and he's like 100 people like fucking gangbanged your face today in public. Like, how do you feel? And I was like, it's actually fine compared to the Savannah Hernandez debacle, where I actually had somebody semi-famous, Jill Kimmel, slam my face in public. So nobody in that group really matters. Nobody is really famous, or they've completely compromised themselves, and they fully expect me to compromise myself in order to make it to the level that they've achieved, which I find interesting. I'm like, I'm excited for that. But I was going through the comments, And there's some really interesting. I actually read every comment. Not that I was obsessing. I just find it really entertaining and really telling about the people doing the comments. Now, that last video that I made about the pee hole thing or whatever, the response that I was getting from you guys, from the fans, was interesting as well. Like, you guys didn't understand what I was talking about. I was getting like sympathy. Like, the people felt sorry for. I'm like, I don't want your sympathy. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I think what I forget sometimes is that you guys don't know what I have in my head. And a lot of the people who want to discount me call me crazy. That's fine. I'm crazy just like Ron Jeremy. So, which is that I find when people call me crazy, it relieves the pressure of performance. Now I don't have to perform. Now I don't have to meet their expectations because everything I say is crazy, which I'm fine with. It doesn't discount me. I don't take it personal. What I want you to take away is the information. Now you can take the information and then go test it yourself, and be aware on that level and understand that for that. You don't have to take it from me. Don't listen to me. Take the information, explore it yourself, run it through whatever, calculation, scientific model, whatever you want to do, and then get back to us. So I am confident in my abilities because I have seen thousands of buttholes. So when I'm talking about buttholes, I'm talking about dead subwoofers. I've seen Rockwell Fosgate, I've seen JL Audio, I've seen all the brands. Nobody does anything special. So I find it interesting that this little guy is what gets Jacob pissed. And then he doesn't even have the balls to mention me by name. So, which again, that is very telling about Jacob. So it's not like he said anything that was derogatory or inflammatory. He gave his opinion. He feels like I'm a hack. I agree with him. There's nothing to debate there. So what I find funny though is that he took his time, especially since he's a zillionaire now, that Scottie Johnson gave him, like $100 million. Well, of course, I would love to see the numbers on that deal. Like, Scottie has to pay him over 5 years or 10 years or whatever it is, and it's a portion of the profits and all that kind of stuff. Some, how do you really buy a business type of thing without really giving any money? But anyways, let's go over the science of this, because I was a little disappointed in Ken Brown speaking up and saying that this device is for cooling, and you're missing the bigger point, okay? Just because it's designed for something, number one, doesn't mean it's effective. And number two, the bigger one, which is that it doesn't belong there in the first place. So Elon, of course, is great in talking about this, about most, because he's not an engineer, right? Or is he? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. He talks about how a lot of engineers will sit there and tinker and argue over the most efficient way to do something when it really doesn't even need to be in the system in the first place. So that's my argument. That's all. The other argument that I had was that I was mad, right? Because I'm going about my business, I'm doing my recones, and I can't do a concave cone. I can't do a concave cap because of this dildo butt plug. So unless you make the spacing really high, which is, I've had to do that too on a couple of them, like on the old ZV4. ZV4, I think, was a mistake. Like, China got it wrong. Like, it wasn't supposed to be that tall. And but again, you got to understand that Jacob is never going to tell you the truth, because his work is based on lies and mistakes and miscalculations. Now, does he try to do the best with what he's got? Of course, we all do that. So, but I've dealt with China. I know they make mistakes. Sometimes they just say, basically are like, fuck you, it's your problem. It depends on their situation as well. And he's been dealing with them for years and years and years. And so, sometimes you get good results, sometimes you don't. And of course, I will always thank him, right, for turning me on to vendors that he used, like Hangtai. So, and I've worked with Hangtai, and they're not always into what I'm doing. And so I actually found a build house that we can outsource it to Hangtai or whoever and get the work done. Now, I have seen shoddy work from Sundown. And of course, you guys don't get to see this because you're not the one that buys pallets and pallets of dead subwoofers and gets to see how they failed or why they failed. So One of the things I saw was a fail was, I think it was the ZV4. They were welding the bottom of the T-yoke to the back plate, and China just didn't weld all the way. They just did a couple tack welds, and I think they just forgot. But I found it interesting that they were using that method rather than a fit method that where I think you heat up both pieces and then you don't forge them together, but it's definitely a tight fit, and then they're just, and they're permanent. And then there's other companies that do it the opposite, which was like, I think I pulled apart a Diamond Audio one time, the Diamond Audio D6. They just glue the pole piece together. So they make the bottom, the T-yoke, the back plate, as one piece with a slightly raised pole, and then they just glue with epoxy the pole extension on top. That's it. There's no mechanical, other than the epoxy, mechanical attachment of the pole. And they sold thousands and thousands of those. Again, these guys, they make their money in that year. It only has to last a year, and then it's not their problem anymore. My other argument against some of the design choices that Jacob had, which was that if it is so effective and if it is so good, why aren't you currently using it, right? So I think the last time we saw this was about that time. I think it was on the ZV3, I want to say, that it had a glue in. He also used it on the SD series for a little bit. And of course, all of those always fall off just because the pole is one of the first things to get hot. And then the epoxy gives out and then it just pops off and jiggles around inside the speaker, and then I get yelled at. So they're like, "This is one of your rebuilds, Patrick." So believe me, I have a lot of bad press about people trying to take a chance on me. So I have to perform for these people, and I have to stick by my warranty, and I always do, as long as it's my fault. If it's a burned coil, a burned tensile, that is not my fault. But I find that interesting. So, but I wanted to go over some examples real quick. Well, let's go over Jacob's design first, which is that it has a good amount of surface area. So you got the neck here, and then you also have the base, which fit in the top. Oh, let me change. Hold on, let me pause this and change motors. All right, so the shim has always been 3 business cards for the Sundowns, for the SA, which I think is kind of thick. But I remember, who was it? I'll throw him under the bus too. Travis Young was telling me, he's like, "Look at the gap on the SA, dude. It's pretty gappy." And it is. Yeah, I use 3 business cards on the shim for the ID, and then the OD is also, like there's a big air gap. It should be tighter, but it's not. And I think that's just so it doesn't rub or whatever. I would love Jacob to explain why he made that choice. Again, if you want the coil to get rid of the heat, because the coil is the source of the heat, right? And then you want to disperse the heat. You want to get rid of it as quick as possible. And the way you get rid of that, again, you have a very thin film of air, right, to transmit that heat, to transfer the heat to the steel. So, and it can go up in several ways. T.C.O.Z did an aluminum cone and an aluminum coupler to use the cone also as a heat sink. That turns out not to be so great because then it kills the joints at the top and all kinds of things. Dealing with heat is always a problem, just because here's the thing. Here's the bigger picture, the more objective zoom out picture. Heat should not be a problem in a subwoofer. It shouldn't be when the subwoofer is used properly. But 8 out of 10 times it's not used properly. And so you have to overbuild it in order to accommodate people's abuse. And people are just naturally abusive with woofers, and they're naturally cheap, right? They'll buy this and they think it does 1,000 watts. And that's one of the reasons why Jacob rates it at like 650 or 750 or whatever it is. And then you hear people sort of triumph. They're like, "I run 1,100 watts to mine all day long," and it fucking pounds. And that is not performance. That is abuse. But that's a whole other story. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see that. There you go. The peony pole, the 2 kids 1 sandbox thing, the heat sink, whatever you want to call it, it's not needed for the coil extension because there's already an extension. So, and if you're running the coil out of the gap that far, here, let's just grab this one. This one's actually the aluminum version. So if you're running it out that far, there we go. And it's getting hung up, right? It's less likely to if that little fucker's in there, right? It's going to guide it back in. So again, it's really a dummy proof thing. So, and you saw that on the original version, which he did this out of steel. He made the cone out of steel. And then again, I would love to hear his arguments for not attaching it with bolts like DD does. That's what DD does. DD does 2 bolts right here, 1, 2. And then of course they use that feature to then upsell you either with an aluminum plug that they put on top, or they do the Neo, the dumb Neo thing, whatever that is, super Gauss or whatever, supercharge. You can put that in place as well. But again, their frames aren't even detachable, which is dumb. So, but whatever, that's their thing. So, and then you got other companies like Orion. If you look at the pole on the Orions, they do the same thing. Theirs is finned, which is better. It's not finned where the air flows, which should be on the inside, which means you would have to tool up some extrusion. So a lot of these are just cast. This one is just machined. A real simple machine work. Not a lot of surface area if you look at the P hole, but it does have mass, which is trying to account for what, again, Jacob uses it for cooling. I don't know where, I think I was just making a joke. I love it when people take me literal when I said it adds mass. Like, it's a piece of aluminum. Like, I'm aware that it doesn't, whatever. You guys are dumb. That's fine. Some of you guys don't understand that I'm being sarcastic, which I'm fine too. Just ask. All you have to do is ask, and then I'll answer the question legit. So unless it's really stupid, then I'll make fun of you. But Orion one-upped it and did the backplate too. So this is theirs that fits in the butt plug part. And then this is all with epoxy, and then they put epoxy all right here, and then they just stick it on the back and they line up the holes. And that's the Orion version. And so this could be considered a heat sink as well to help deal with heat. Does it really work? I don't know. Not everybody, see, Sundown doesn't have it. Why doesn't Sundown have it? So Sundown puts the vents down there. So again, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You don't have to do it that way. Some choices are made for cosmetics. I think this is mostly a cosmetic thing, but you could argue that it's for heat sink. Again, why Jacob chose this and why he didn't bolt it in place, I think has to do with just being cheap. Even though I think the cost on this was probably right around $35 to $40, completely built, imported from China. And then forever they were selling it for, I think, like $150, under $200. Now it's a really expensive woofer. It's like, what the fuck? So, but again, he's leveraging the brand. He's using the power of the brand to extract more money out of you, which his peers, right? So his peers are owners of JL Audio, Rockford Fosgate, Ampere Audio in the case of Taylor Gardner. Not in the case of Scott Dildo, because he's not an owner anymore, right? He's just that Sundown guy. So, he's just a fanboy. He's just a nut hugger. But let's see. Oh, there was the MTX one too I wanted to do. Now, MTX did a really good job. I still don't agree with some of the stuff they did, but because a lot of the stuff is proprietary and it's a little hard to work with. You can actually remove this. This is their outer heat sink that goes on the outside of the coil. And then this is a plug. This is just a big chunk of aluminum. It's mass, thermal mass. Does it help? Now this one actually does guide it back in if you get that coil out. But the coil, I think the line height on theirs is 60 millimeter. So it was actually more than normal. Oh, somebody was asking too on the super coil, the SPL coil. That was I'm pretty sure you can still get it from Dan. I don't think Dan Horner of Directronics, by the way. I don't think Dan will sell just the coil. I think under contract he can't. But of course, if you want to get it made up, I can, send the DIMMs to China and get it made up. But I really liked it. It was just really beefy. It was 8-layer. It was aluminum, and it was also taller. It was like a 50 millimeter wind height. I think this is a 45, if I remember, or 50. But and it just filled the gap better. So it's going to transmit the heat better to the steel. But then again, if you're running this with 1,000 watts, you're going to saturate it pretty quick, and it's going to get all hot, and then you start shifting and all this kind of stuff. And that's why I did with the GONZO Junior. We're doing the bolts and all this stuff. I would love to bring back a replica of this. So, and then I just add the bolt feature, and then sell this. If I can do a modular version, it'll make it a little too deep, but again, I think this was a great woofer. I don't think he should have ever changed. Really, I think the only reason he changed was to control the narrative, to control the recone, the residual money that comes in. So, because it's a weird coil. It's the same as the W6 coil, but I think it's beefier. So, because the W6 coil is pretty frail. That's, and I've told you about that. It was funny. Oh, that's right. The same guy came in and was talking about, he was apologizing for the bukkake that the Jacobs boys had given me. And, he says, well, that's, you know, he didn't have it was an older guy. He didn't have his glasses on, and he handed me a thing of, hold on, Dextron, which is a transmission fluid. And, he says, hey, what does it say on there about Mercuron or something like that, or ATF? And I haven't dealt with that shit in such a long time, but I remember in high school they were telling us that I forget what the rule is. Like you can use Chevy in something, but you can't use Ford in the other one, or however it went. But one of the it was a Ford versus Chevy, and you can't. There's no standard for like automatic transmission fluid, even though there probably should be. And one or both companies created products so that you can't use it in the other. Again, I would love to hear somebody that is a car person that knows about this. But if you use it in the other brand, like, it ruins it because of the chemistry of the seals that they use. And I was like, wow. And then the other one is like, you can't use Ford rims on Chevy rims because the bolt hole pattern is different, or it's a different diameter, or if it's a different just size altogether, the hub is different. Because I remember I had I bought a spare tire from a garage and put it on my 65. Oh, I'll make the thumbnail for this too, which is my 65 Chevelle Malibu that I got for $100. It was a Ford rim, and that didn't stop me from putting it on my Chevy. You just gotta, balance it, and it was like too small, but I just fucking cranked on it and got the nuts on there anyway, and it did fine until I could get to the next place. But I thought it was funny. I was like, why would they do that? They do that on purpose so that you have to go back to them. So they cause you specific problems, so you have to go back to them. And Jacob is not above that. He's doing this for the money. Why would he sell his hard work and his baby to Scottie Johnson? Why? If he loves you and he loves Sundown so much. For the money. So, what was it? The other thing that came up was, I forgot, my apology. I'm sorry, Jacob. I totally spaced out there. My apology. I apologize. The thoughts that I had were bad. So I went back and looked at the comments, and I went back another time today, and I was like, I got to read them all. I love that. And so I looked at all of them, and I didn't see two people on there. One was Taylor Gardner, and the other one was Scott Dildo. And I didn't see their comments. And in my mind, I was like, holy shit, I wonder if they retracted their statements. Like, again, my only reference to this was the Savannah Hernandez comedy thing where Jill Kimmel decided to put a knife in my back as well, and then she took her comments off. So again, to protect herself and not to bring shame to her family and her brother. Not that, those comments would do that, but again, have some fucking class and have some restraint in gangbanging me on the internet. So I assumed that either Jacob removed Scott and Taylor's comments either to protect them, and I was like, I don't think Jacob's that protective. And I was like, they probably are cowards and they probably removed their comments. And I was like, that's more likely. Well, guess what? I was wrong. But the real culprit is Mark Zuckerberg. So I saw the post, and the post said 99 comments. And I didn't know that there was a button. This is how Facebook savvy I am. Up in the top left corner, it says previous comments. And you don't have to hit it once. You may have to hit it multiple times in order to see all the comments. And so after I went through that, and I was like, holy shit, Mark Zuckerberg is the douchebag that I'm hating on, not Jacob. So Jacob, I apologize. Taylor, I apologize. You are a true douchebag. You're not a coward. You put your comments out there and you stand by them. That's fine. Very proud of you. Same with you, Scottie. And also Jacob didn't save them. He didn't, try to say like, hey, maybe you shouldn't make this comment because you own a brand and it's not great for an owner to shit on another owner or something like that. Whatever bro code that you got. No, the comments are still there. It's Mark Zuckerberg that's the douchebag, and then that's where I got to my idea about what Jacob is. Jacob is Facebook. Everybody hates Facebook, but everybody uses Facebook because there's nothing else to replace it. So you just use it and you just take it up the butt, and you give Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook all your information, and he sells it and he taunts you about it and he makes lots of money doing it. Jacob is the same guy. He just keisters you in the butthole for something that costs, pennies to make in China, and he's like, wow. And then again, and it's not personal. I know it's not personal, even though he made this post personal about me. 2 posts, by the way. I know it's not personal. He just treats everybody that way. And that was one of the reasons why I was really disenchanted with him and wasn't afraid of him like all the other builders were when I was a authorized repair guy for Sundown. And what's funny is Jacob calls me an absolute hack, but yet I was approved, my work was approved to make it onto the team back in whenever it was, 2014, 2016, whenever it was. Actually, it was like 2013, 2014. Because one of the last loads that I had shipped was to the old house of Sundown Motors. But that's, I was perfectly okay to buy his dead subwoofers then, and I was perfectly okay to be an authorized repair center. But now, now that I'm not under his thumb for parts, right? Now I buy my parts from China or I buy them from Florida base. Guess who also doesn't like Jacob? I would love to tell you some of those conversations that I've had with other vendors. But again, back to Jacob's design choices. Again, this is just a dumb design choice. This should not be in there. There's no reason for it to be in there. Even if it is for cooling, it doesn't do a very good job, and it has the chance of going loose. If you really wanted to do this right, he should do it like MTX or DD or one of those guys, one of those premier companies, not some shitty Chinese knockoff company like that only makes black speakers. Like, what the fuck? Like, you only make black speakers? It's like you guys are copying Scar. Like, Scar's generic enough. Why do you want to be like Scar? So, let's see. I think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Let me give a moment to reflect, because this is 30 minutes, and thank you for hanging in there with me and hearing all this stuff. But I wanted to be very scientific-y about... Oh, let me defend Jacob's point of view as his engineering decision, which was that if you look at the pole size... Oh, wait, no, the pole is small. See, now, it would be different if the pole opening was larger. See, now, if it was larger and this was smaller, right, then you get what's called the Venturi effect, which is where it compresses the air and it creates higher velocity. Now, the downside of this is that it gets noisy, it gets chuffy. And you see this like on the RE Audio MT and also on the MTX 9500. They don't have any venting in the pole. And so what they rely on is that the coil chuffs in and out, and they're hoping that the velocity inside the gap is what pushes the air out. So again, there's more than one way to do this. You don't have to do a big 2 kids, 1 sandbox pee hole, where, like, see, even that one, I broke a Harbor Freight drill bit. Jacob owes me a fucking Harbor Freight drill bit, because I was using it to tap this fucker off. But again, that's what everybody's saying. That's what Ken Brown said. I was, not that I'm super surprised, because Ken unfriended me on Facebook, even though I actually defend his work several times. How Scott at Atwell ripped him off and then did the SMD woofer based on Ken's work. So, but again, if Ken wants to throw me under the bus, I don't give a shit. Ken's a nobody. He's not going to be anybody. He's got a kid. His kid is his worry. I don't have any kids. I'm going to the moon. I was in there loving on my youngest. And when I say my youngest, I'm talking about my youngest dog. They argue a little bit when it comes to food time, and so we've got into the habit of this is for Wheezy. So I bring a scoop of food in there. We also got to control the food a little bit because Gracie gets a little piggy. She's got a bit of a fatty tumor on her chest, and anyways, So now Wheezy goes in there and we like basically hand feed her and dote on her and love on her. And she wants you to be there before she'll eat. She's like, I really like this. I like the company. And then of course, when Molly comes over, she like growls at her like, you know, and it's a show thing, but, that's it. That's my like personal responsibilities as far as family goes. Again, I'm doubling down, tripling down on the idea that I'm going to live for 160 years. I'm going to the moon and I'm burning all the bridges that aren't important to that. And so at the end of the day, I had 99 dudes jizz on my face in public, started by Jacob Fuller. And Jacob Fuller, who again he's never going to amount to anything other than this. This is it. He's a dad. He's going to focus on that. You can see how much he's focusing on his health and his weight and all that kind of stuff, which again, is a little megalomaniac, but okay. If you want to talk about fitness, even though you got a $100 million company, or they do $100 million in business, I don't know how profitable it is, but whatever. I think that's funny. I think that's not interesting at all. I think it's a basic bitch kind of thing. But again, I'm not here to tell Jacob how to do it. I'm just here to point out some of the mistakes that he made, and also clue you into him not being what you think he is. And of course, he doesn't owe you anything to be that to you. So just because you lick his nuts doesn't mean he owes you anything. And I can understand why he acts like he acts when you're getting your nuts licked every day, right? Again, that goes back to the video that I released earlier today, which was about the Girl Scouts. So this happens, this phenomena happens not just to pretty girls, right? When they're pretty and they're like, whatever, they're young, people are nice to them and they don't know why, but people are just naturally nice to them because they're pretty. The ugly ones don't get that treatment. But because people are trying to try more, you end up with really snotty, ugly girls on OnlyFans or wherever, on whatever Snap or whatever they are. And it's like, wow, even ugly girls are mean. Now, what I find interesting about this, and Mike Judge of Beavis and Butthead has commented on this by using the boys to make this point, which was that there's been a couple times where it's specifically Butthead. It's not, well, maybe it is Beavis. I can't remember now. Anyways, one of them gets kicked in the nuts by a girl, but they're constantly, they're just proud that a girl touched them. That's how low their self-esteem is. And that's how low many men rate themselves and give up their power to other people. Now, what was it? One of my guys showed up today with a Down for Sound t-shirt. I just thought that was hilarious. And he's like, you like my shirt? I was like, yeah, I like your shirt. That's hilarious. So of course he's wearing ironically, but if you understand it, you know, you actually get compliments about it, because that's all JP is. He's a hype man, and he doesn't give two shits about you. What I find funny is that he puts you to work, right? All these noobs always fall for that shit, because I'm like moderator on lots of threads. Like I reject your dumb ads. Like you're trying to sell chickens or something on a car audio forum, that you're getting banned for that. There's no warning. You're just getting banned. What was it? If you post JP on any of that, you're getting banned. Like you're an idiot. Nobody wants you. You're a loser. You can't even afford Jensen or something basic. And so you feel so sorry for yourself and so pathetic that you're willing to promote somebody like JP, who's already super wealthy, in order for just a chance. Just a chance. And how legitimate that chance is, I don't know. That would be interesting to see those numbers. But again, he's getting free publicity from you for the chance to win whatever he's offering. Like, I don't know, he's got a nut on a t-shirt and send it to you. Whatever it is. Stop being so pathetic. Stop being so hungry for approval and again, for free stuff. That's one of the reasons why I do what I do, which is to give you an opportunity to resell. That's why I make the stuff generic. There's no branding on this. And I will probably sell it for $200 or more. So, and especially if I sell it to somebody like, especially for home theater. Like if I sell it to a home theater guy and then he puts it in a cabinet and does some cabinet work on it, now it's $1,000 subwoofer. Is that real value? It doesn't matter. Somebody's paying for that and they're getting a service. And then now if you can prove that it performs the same, let's say as a Sunfire True Sub, which it's basically the same thing. It's just this one uses a slightly smaller voice coil, same magnet stack, or similar magnets. I think the Sundown or the Sunfire is a little wider, but the performance would be about the same. And so if you can price it, say 25% less than the Sunfire, and it still performs the same or similar, that's a winner. That's a winning fucking product. Oh, that's what the guy said today. After we talked a little bit about the Jacob thing, and he says, you sound like Sam Walton. I was like, the Walmart guy? He goes, yeah. He goes, back in the 70s or whatever, the 80s or whenever he got started, he was like appalled that JCPenney and Sears and those guys were making 40 points on everything. And he's like, why do you have to make 40 points on everything? And of course, if you talk to executives at the time, the propaganda that they all say is, well, it keeps a certain level of standard, it keeps the store nicer, you get to hire better people, which may all be true or may not be true. And he's like, why do you need a salesperson to sell, whatever it is, XYZ, like clothes or whatever it is? And he's like, what if I only made a 20% margin? Or what if I only made a 10% margin? How would I do? Well, history shows that Sam Walton was correct in his ability to offer goods at a discount in order to attract your business. And now those companies, Sears is gone, Kmart's gone, who was the other one? JCPenney's is basically gone. They tried to rebrand. They can't do it. Nobody wants to pay $40 for a fucking towel. So, and that's just that is like basic home stuff. Now, you don't necessarily see those effects until when the market tends to get worse, when people don't have the money to spend. This is basically a Nick Hutchinson Origin, right? And this is the 12. So look up what the clearance price was on the Origin 12. And I think he was selling this for $700. And it's basically the same woofer. So he's selling this woofer that costs him, like, again, about $40 to make, and he's selling it for $700. That's a pretty good margin. But how many sales are you making, right? And that's where Sundown, and Sundown is just copying Scar. And Scar's out there working hard on Amazon and making all those sales. And then Sundown shows up and wants to be just like them. And it's the dumbest thing. So, but they're both really generic products, and they're just basic black. And it's like, who would want that? Apparently lots of people like it. Lots of people like Scar because they don't want to pay $600 for a $1,200 amp. We can't all, and I'm talking about me. I never liked spending a lot of money on audio because I know it's a luxury item. It's not a necessity. But if you feel like it's a necessity, you don't want to pay a lot. And so that's why everybody shops at Walmart. They don't want to pay a lot for socks. They don't want to pay a lot for underwear. They don't want to pay a lot for bananas. And that may be one of the reasons why Jacob has sold his company, is because he sees the peak of the market. He knows what's coming, right? He's already made his money in crypto, right? So he doesn't give a shit about the Sundown money. Sundown is just gravy. So that's going to pay for college kids or whatever, whatever he's got. It's going to pay for those things. So, but yeah, now he's going to retire early and get into real estate, and then some weird exotic thing, like all these guys do. They get into airplanes and aircraft and things like that. And, next thing you know, they're going to the Virgin Islands and they're on Epstein's Island and, and they're digging up tennis courts because there's bodies buried under there. There's all kinds of shit. Anyways, I love you guys, and I thank you for your support. And I love the haters. I love you guys. I love you guys so much, and I'm so aware of where this is heading. I even reserved hatefans.com to list all you guys and show my hate fans, and then also show other hate fans. So I'm with the Colonel. Speaking of Lisa Marie Presley and losers that do drugs, the Colonel, Elvis's promoter, even sold I Hate Elvis buttons to make the money. So, and again, that was one of the first things I learned about when I started Robot as a brand. Somebody shit on the logo. And at first I got butthurt, and I go, he doesn't get it. And then I go, why do I care? As long as I make the sale, as long as I sell the unit, I don't give a shit. And so I've been whittling away at my ego about my ego is not important for my success. And again, the idea of this is, again, not to make me rich. It's just as a vehicle to get me to the next level. Now, would I love to be, I don't know, I don't want to say worth, but I would say if I control $100 million? Would I love to saturate the car audio market and make it ubiquitous? Oh, you fucking bet. Just as an entertaining week. That would be hilarious to me, to put all these douchebags out of business. And then you guys can do all your important, I want to do 18s or whatever you want to do. Whatever you think is important in your life. And you'll do it for next to nothing because of me. So I would encourage you to support me to get to that point, because Jacob's never going to do that for you. Taylor Gardner's never going to do that for you. Scott Dildo is never going to do that for you, right? He's selling you Snapon tools, which are the dumbest thing in the world. So I don't even want to buy Craftsman, right? Because we saw how that worked out. Me, Harbor Freight all day. And that's one of the reasons Harbor Freight wins at the end of the day. In fact, I even stopped going to Harbor Freight because they got too expensive. They got too big for their britches. They start selling their own shit and they're like, oh, there's inflation. No, there's not. You guys are fucking gouging. Shut the fuck up. Look on Amazon. Look on other deals. Look for used stuff. Help yourself. I want to empower you to be your own jiznado in your neck of the woods. And you can do that by simply being honest and kind and helping people, and also having boundaries. Do not let people jizz on your face for free. Well, unless you're into that, then that's something different. But you can help people and be nice and not let them run you over, and not let them think that you're stupid for giving your heart away, for loving other humans, for caring when nobody else cares. So the way that society is organized right now, everybody is wrong. Everybody is doing it wrong. And that's a hard thing for people to have the courage to stand up and say. And again, that's the feedback that I got, was people were having sympathy. Don't have sympathy for me. I showed up for this. I want this. This is exactly what I wanted. This is such a tiny price to pay to get my vehicle to where I want to go. Again, to the moon. Okay, that's where I want to go. So if 99 dudes got to jizz on my face in public, that's fine. That's a day's work. It's nothing to me. I don't give a shit about that. So, but again, I encourage you guys to ask questions. I encourage you guys to be vulnerable on here. People, if you're vulnerable, like if you go into the forums, like SSA and all that kind of stuff, I'll put a link to Jacob's defense anyway. Jacob put a link on there about why he uses the jizz rings or whatever they are, Faraday rings, to make it sound better. And of course he doesn't elaborate, he doesn't show anything. And any information that he would show isn't on a clipple. It's on small parameters. It's not on a clipple. Show it on a clipple, and guess what? The whole industry will change. The whole industry will switch to Faraday rings because they're effective, right? Oh, they're not? Oh, okay. Well then shut the fuck up, you hoser piece of trash, trying to give people things that they think they want, but they don't really know what they want. Oh, the John Genowitz too, that piece of shit. I delivered on my fucking promise. I came out of pocket. I took a $2,000 loss to make up and keep my promise to that piece of shit. And then he shits on me? Like, well, fuck you. You're a nobody. You're never going to go anywhere. You're a loser. You don't understand what you're doing. You have no bigger plan. You have no bigger goal. You're just happy to not have to go to a job every day where they hate you anyway. So, and I know they hate you because they hated me. Again, I would ruin the day for everybody. I didn't know I was ruining the day for everybody when I was at at the time it was called US West, but now that's the Bell company, the phone company. The guys went to lunch, and I go, well, I already ate. Let me get to work. And I looked at all the orders, and it was a stack of orders that you do line pulls. You go into the copper and you just disconnect the line. So there's a whole thing of line disconnects, and we did them in like 20 minutes. And the guys came back from lunch, and they're like, hey, where'd all those orders go? And I go, oh, we did them. He's like, what are you doing? And I got yelled at, and I got sent home early as punishment for doing that. Why? Because it sets false expectations, or expectations that they don't want to have to support. Even though it only took 20 minutes. That was a day's work for them. And again, I don't like unions. I don't like what those things do. It creates laziness. There's got to be another way to do it. And again, that's what I want to do with Starling Studios. I want to pay everybody more. I want everybody to be on board. I want the staff to make residuals on every picture, on every production, which is how it should be. And you end up actually avoiding a lot of lawsuits because people contribute to a screenplay or to a production, and they feel like they should have more. But if you actually include them in the agreement, they're down for it. as soon as you eliminate the studios and the distribution, oh God, there's way more money on the table for this little production that you made. It's fucking great. Anyways, that idea can be spread to audio and all kinds of things. That's why you want to go direct. That's why I did the Gonzo Jr. thing. That's why I'm selling woofers. It's not necessarily to make money. It's simply to cut into the market and trim the fat, and also get me to where I want to go. I think it's fun. I think it's fun ruining pompous jerks' lives. I think that's fun. and duly so, if you think that I'm a pompous jerk, if you think, what is the other ones they call me? Sociopath, narcissist, well, of course, a hack, whatever. If you think those things, fine. Do something about it. Create your own product. Create your own videos. Again, I love getting criticism from people that have either 0 subscribers or 2 subscribers. Make your own content. Show me that I'm wrong. Whatever subject it is, I want to learn more. And if you're right, then I will. Again, like I said, I apologize to Jacob for thinking that he would watch out for Taylor. Taylor's a grown up, and he right there, he put himself on the line, and he showed how much of a douchebag piece of shit he is, and good for him. Same with little Scottie. I swear to God, he's probably got to be only like 5'2". Same with little Scottie. He's a grown up, and he can pull up his own panties. And I can't believe Patrick did a whole slap in the face. Yeah, you can read his comments. Again, I'm putting the link to Jacob's threads, and you can see all of his dumb posts about his house, whatever. He's doing some squeezy thing or whatever, and it's 0 calorie sugars or whatever. He's Mr. Fitness now. He doesn't give a shit about Sundown woofers anymore. I'm letting you know right now, I don't give a shit about subwoofers. I don't. I give a shit about helping people. I give a shit about empowering you guys and getting you free from your 9-to-5 job so you can work at home and make a decent living. And the way that you do that is you cut into the pie. And you cut out people like Jacob. You cut out people like Taylor Gardner. You cut out those douchebags. You don't need them. They don't do anything. I want to empower you guys to make money. Stay at home. Jack off all day. I love you guys. Make it a great week. I'll talk to you later.